Hi, good morning, guys. Ready Retting Racing here. So we're going to do a preview looking at the racing action for tomorrow, Saturday the 12th of August. So I thought it was a difficult day tomorrow. Not a great deal standing out, if I'm totally honest. But there's a couple of races what I'll look at. I decided to leave Ascot. The Sugar Cup, it's not really my thing. You know, it's not a concept that I'm particularly find enjoyable from a betting perspective. You've got jockeys coming over, riding the track for the first time, or with limited experience on the track, no knowledge of the horses. So I'm happy to just take a pass and let Ascot happen without me being involved. Quite a bit of rain around in quite a few places as well, so we could have quite changing ground. I thought that was what made Haydock difficult tomorrow. You just don't know what you're going to end up ground-wise there. So let's have a look at the races I have had a look at. I think it's a day where I want margins on my side tomorrow, definitely. So I'm going to be very, very strict with my kind of price requirements and making sure I've got the margin on side that I want. So if we have a look at, firstly over at Redcar, actually in the 238, I thought this was quite an interesting little handicap. I thought the two at the top of the market here would probably be Star Player and Painter's Palette, and it's the latter I'm actually most interested in, Painter's Palette. Now I think the reason why I like this horse tomorrow is, I mean, he's yet to win on turf, but I don't think it's a case of him being an all-weather horse despite it being 2 from 2 on the all-weather, because he's run some very good races on turf, including this season. As I mentioned, there is rain about, and I think Redcar could end up kind of soft by the time we get to the race day, or to the time of the races. And I think that this horse would be quite happy on that. It's got form on soft ground. There's heavy winning ground form in the dam-sided French pedigree, so soft ground shouldn't be an issue for this horse at all tomorrow. If anything, it will probably help it. I thought his runs this season were pretty decent, to be fair. I mean, he had excuses of ripping on Derby. He got quite et up that day. He was quite hot and sweaty. He still had a chance, probably 2 furlongs somehow. I remember being a bit... I backed the winner that day, Cockalorum, and I remember thinking Painter's Palette's looking dangerous at one point. So, it probably didn't run as bad as it maybe could have, taken into account the kind of getting quite hot and sweaty beforehand. It then went to Air after that. I thought the Air run was a really good run. They kind of went from the front end a bit that day. It made up a bit of ground from behind against, Garden Oasis. He's set to quite a decent form standard. Tilsit was in that as a bit of an air specialist as well. And as I say, I thought Garden Oasis probably had the run of the race there a little bit, and Painter's Palette made a bit of ground up from behind. And then similar pattern with the next one at Carlisle. I think this form's quite strong here. I was at Carlisle this day, and it pretty much rained all morning and most of the day. But you wanted to be handy in the racing, really. It was won by Mustawa beating Leomarti Dreams. They were on the front end throughout. They're in good form, those horses. There was only really 2 horses made up any ground in this race. One was Painter's Palette to come third, and the other one was United Front, who's also running very well and very consistent off his mark at the minute, and has run well since. So I thought that was a good run off 18. He's on the same mark here. He then went to Ascot. Now, I backed it this day, and on paper this looks a disappointing run. However, there was definitely a track bias this day, and the rails were on the stand side. Sorry, the stalls were on the stand side. You had to be drawn high. You couldn't really compete drawn low at Ascot this day. So he was caught out on a wing, wrong part of the track. You can just put a line through that. It's had a pound back now since then. Comes here on what should be softer ground tomorrow. I think it's, I can't see how it doesn't go close in this tomorrow. So as I say, I've got it around about 4-1 joint favourite with Star Player. The Star Player is a progressive 3-year-old. He's definitely going to be a threat, looking at his form this season. I thought his 2 first runs this season at Sandown and Pontefract were 2 good efforts. The Chester run next time wasn't a bad effort, but I thought he was well positioned in that race, and I was a bit disappointed he didn't go closer there, should we say. That was actually his first run on soft ground, so whilst on pedigree you wouldn't be against soft ground for this horse, but maybe it's not what it wants, because as I say, it was a little bit disappointing last time at Chester, but it's an improving horse. It's from a really good yard, so you would have to respect that. Top jockey on board as well in Benoit Delasayette. It looks like it could be the one to beat. Might want a bit further. Pedigree suggests it could improve for going past a mile, maybe up to 10. But I'm under no illusions he'll be a threat tomorrow. You've got Young Fire in there. We know Young Fire well. He's probably not the force of old, but he's still well handicapped on his very old form. Will love the ground if the rain does come as expected. I say he's in quite good form at the minute, so he offers a threat. But we did have the beating of Young Fire at Ayr when we met earlier this season. So we're probably better handicapped than Young Fire now, if you like, in that respect. Not taking into account his form of old. Give it some Teddy's a course specialist. You'd have to respect, but he's not been in great form at the minute. Will like the rain if the rain does come. Tends to do his winning more so towards the autumn, which could well be ground related, but he's on a very, very dangerous mark if he turns up and he's in the mood tomorrow. But I think we might get a price and painters palette. So I put it in at 4s. I want margins on my side tomorrow. If we can get 5 to 1 or above, I'll back that tomorrow. That last run, if people are not going to take into account track position being huge at Ascot on that day, means we could get a bit of a decent price. And I'm hopeful of a bigger run from that one tomorrow. So moving on over to Newmarket. Quite a good card at Newmarket, but I did find it tricky, to be honest. So there's a couple of races I'll go through here. Starting with the Sweet Solera Stakes, actually, at 340, is it? Yeah, 340. I tend not to get involved in too many 2-year-old races, but I thought this was quite a decent race tomorrow. And the one I actually liked was Soprano. I came down on Soprano, and it purely be just the way this race I think is likely to be run tomorrow. So Fallen Angel beat it last time, and Fallen Angel definitely looks a promising horse. And I think if I was to say which horse I think is going to be the best horse long term here, I would say Fallen Angel. But I just think the way this race might be run here, when they met at Sandown, it was on softer ground than we're probably going to get here at Newmarket tomorrow. Soprano was a little bit slow out, or not slow out, it didn't break cleanly, shall we say. It hasn't broke too cleanly in its last 2 efforts, but I thought he was a little bit keyed in behind as well last time at Sandown. Then looked like he actually kind of quickened past Fallen Angel when we come into like the final furlong and a half, 2 furlongs from home, before Fallen Angel was probably maybe better stamina, ended up taking it back past Soprano. So as I say, I just think the way that race was run probably benefited Fallen Angel a little bit more right on that front end. I think tomorrow this could be run differently over a straight mile on slightly quicker ground. A turn of foot might come into it a little bit more, and that's where I think Soprano might take advantage and reverse the form with Fallen Angel tomorrow. There's not a lot to go with both of them really, so that's kind of my view on how I think it might pan out. Off some of the others, Wild Goddess has been, looked quite impressive. Where's the Hood was good last time, putting some strong sectionals in that race, but I'm not sure the form is quite up there at the same level as what Soprano and Fallen Angel have achieved so far. Caroline Reaper was very impressive here last time, could be dangerous, could get on the front end and possibly dictate relatively slow early fractions and kicks, so you have to be wary of that horse tomorrow. Jabaro looked good on debut, although the form of that race hasn't really worked out too much, but then let's say it was beaten by Soprano at Ascot. You probably wouldn't rule Jabaro out. He was a bit keen at Ascot on that day, but it's difficult to see how Jabaro improves past Soprano, because I thought the run of Soprano that Ascot had was it didn't break very well. It was caught in no man's land a little bit, Soprano, that day, and still managed to beat Jabaro. So and I think Cry Fiction for the Jonathan Portman team might outrun its price as well. I don't see it being good enough to win, but it's the outsider of the field, but I wouldn't be surprised if it beats 1 or 2 in this tomorrow, to be honest. But it'd be Soprano for me. I think about 130 years at the minute. I think that's fair. As I said, I want to try and get margins on my side. I might get involved at 130, but I'm probably going to try and be a bit patient and wait for a bit bigger. If it goes the other way and ends up getting short, so I'm happy to leave it. So it would be 100 to 30 minimum price for me tomorrow. And I just think the way the races might pan out here might suit the maybe better turn of foot that I think Soprano might have. Okay, and then finally, if we look into the 4:15, the next race, this is a really competitive handicap, loads of pace in this. A couple of horses stepping up to 7 furlongs. You've got Lethal Levi, Guido, Master Richard can be keen, Amber Island can go from the front, Urban Sprawl, Thunderball both sit kind of prominently. Could be run at a bit of a clip. Lethal Levi's definitely dangerous, certainly on a course like this, though you might question the 7 furlongs, but you've got £7 coming off with a claim, he looks a decent young claim. I bet this kind of horse could be difficult for a claimer to get right, shall we say, especially up at 7 furlongs for the first time. So he's going to be a threat. You could say similar situation with Guido. They run their race pretty much most of the time. They could end up slitting each other's throat a little bit as well. The one I'm interested in here, I mean, it's a very, very competitive race, and I mentioned earlier that I want margins on my side tomorrow. If we can get double figures or better on First Folio, I'll look at taking a chance on it each way tomorrow. Current form isn't brilliant, to be honest. He's not. He's had 3 runs this season, ran okay first time up on the all-weather. His 2 efforts since then have been a bit disappointing. It's come down in the handicap. We're down onto 97 now. You wouldn't say he's brilliantly handicapped, but he's certainly handicapped at a mark that he can be very competitive of. And I just think the angle I might take here is a return to Newmarket. If you look at this horse's form at Newmarket, it's run 3 times, twice on the Rolling Mile, once on the July course. His run on July course only beaten, 2.5 lengths by Great Ambassador off a mark of 98. His 2 runs on the Rolling Mile, beaten 4 lengths by Black Rod and 6 lengths by Jumbie off marks of 91 and 97. They look to be the best pieces of form in here, really. It could be a case of back to the Rolling Mile might kind of bring some improvement. It's quite likely raced over 7 furlongs as well, actually. If you look at him over 7 furlongs, only really tried it 3 or 4 times and been there or thereabouts. I mean, a couple of those were in France before he came over here, and then a couple of his efforts since he's been here have been okay runs. We've got Adam Farragher booked for tomorrow, so he'll take another £3 off. It is very, very price dependent, as I say, and I think I want to be a little bit greedy here and try and get the double figures of 10s, and I'll back it each way tomorrow, because this is one of these races. It could be run at a real clip if they all go and just do their thing, and they are the kind of horses who do that, like Lethal Levi and Guido. If jockeys try and get a bit cute, expecting there to be loads of pace, it could be the opposite, and it could end up a bit of a crawl. I think that's unlikely, but I just think he's worth taking the chance tomorrow at the right price. I mean, when I priced it up, I've got him I've got him at 8 to 1. And I think that price would be fair, but as I said, just purely based on the level of form it's running to at the minute, I'd want bigger. It'd be each way 10 to 1 or above. I'll take a chance on First Folio. So I think that wraps it up for tomorrow, really. A couple of other races I looked at, but I thought it was a tricky day in general. So we'll stick with those 3. Painter's Palette over at Redcar in the 238, 5 to 1 or above. Back that to win. What was the other one? Soprano in the Sweet Solo, the 340 at Newmarket. Very, very minimum would be 130, which is available now. Probably try and wait and get a bit bigger at 72. And then the 415 at Newmarket. First Folio each way, if we can get double figures on that, it's a minimum price 10 to 1. So we'll leave it there for tomorrow. Hopefully we can find a winner or two. And good luck, really. Hope you have a good day's racing. Thanks. Bye-bye.